Hello, everyone. My name is DuFay, and welcome to the Mandela Effect equals everything. Now, I'm gonna go over. I got this album here of captions and pictures. Now, illustrations are always really good, and I want to go over these one by one. I've done videos about this before, but we can touch on certain things with each one and see how it goes. But this is like one of my favorites, because this is how I approached the Mandela effect early on. And it was essential, because there was so much information going on and theories going on out there about it, and mostly pointing fingers and things like that. But the thing is we have to really, like Sherlock Holmes, eliminate what is impossible. There's there's it's possible for our bodies to change overnight. It's impossible for the earth to shrink 4 times its size overnight. It's impossible for it to the earth's solar system to travel 75,000 light years overnight through the galactic arm and to another, Orion spur close to the galactic center, where all astrophysicists in the reality I recall thought was in the uninhabitable. But yet here we are. There's so many things that are impossible when it comes to the Mandela effect. So whatever's left, no matter how improbable, must be the answer. And like quite literally, the very first thing I got from the Mandela effect was just how revealing it is. It's revealing that we have a parallel existence in a multitude of Earths or realities, whatever you want to call them. But the fact is it's all one dimensional. There's a lot of illustrations here that get into that. But this is a real good analogy. Our life is like the roll, like the film on the roll. Every frame represents each of our realities. And as the film rolls, our realities blend into a choreographed, fluent, continuous motion. Just as a movie would not exist without the film, we would not exist without quantum entanglement. Now, that's the big thing. It's revealing, this quantum entanglement is everything. And obviously, our soul is shifting into other realities, or the portion of your soul you were born with. And I always liken it to musical chairs. When we do this quantum shift, when we shift realities, it's like musical chairs. While the music plays, every portion of your soul is in superposition, or that's what physicists, quantum physicists, like to say. A quantum flux, all moving in one direction. When the music stops, every portion of your soul coalesces into another replica version of yourself in another reality that you've always existed in. Now, I believe that this happens during REM sleep. I'm certain of it in my case. And it would make sense too. I mean, that's so many things the Mandela effect's revealing. Why we need REM sleep. It's quite apparent that our soul is fractured and splintered. And getting back to the pointing fingers, it's we shouldn't be worried about who's perpetrated it or what perpetrated it. We should be concerned about what it's revealing. And CERN, this research facility is searching for the answer to life, trying to accomplish what the Mandela effect is already doing. It is ironic that they are credited for this phenomenon. That's why they joke about it. That's why people take it seriously. They're just joking about it because they don't even know what people are talking about when they talk about the Mandela effect. So, when you see the signs on their breastplates and breastplate signs in their parties and things like that, that's because they're just joking about it. And here's another example, Sheba the Destroyer. While CERN is searching for the meaning of life, the Mandela effect has already found it. And look at the billions of dollars they're spending, too. And the Mandela effect is free. Think about that. And also, the Mandela effect was meant to be a conundrum. I mean, it's like impossible to prove. I got a comment on my other channel, Plurality of Earth, about, do I have any proof? And my simple reply was no, there's no proof. That's the nature of the Mandela effect. And of course, I still got a bunch of shit for it, basically. Not a bunch, but they replied back, you know, They didn't mean anything mean by it, but that seems like a cop out reply. And it's like, oh my God, you try to be honest about it, and you still get a bunch of shit. But that's the thing about the Mandela effect. There is absolutely no proof, and so therefore it's meant to be a conundrum. It's meant to be like that. So once you realize the whole thing is spiritual, then it becomes easier to understand. And then I always liken this, though our multiple realities may vary, they'll always return to their original destiny. In other words, that's another thing the Mandela Effect's revealing, that essentially that our lives are destined. And in here, there's a good example of the galaxy, our current location in the lower right there, sort of on the right and lower part of it, is where we are now. And we know that we have realities way out. You can see on the outer reaches of the Sagittarius arm. In fact, many of us recall the galaxy looking entirely different, but believe me, it's the same galaxy. It's just that the astrophysicists have a better view of the galaxy out on the outer reaches, so they knew more that it was a spiral arm galaxy 20 years before the astrophysicists did here. And the ironic thing is, of course, the astrophysicists have a parallel existence as well. They have no idea that they have versions of themselves that have been sharing their soul since the day they were born in other different locations within the Milky Way galaxy. So indeed, the whole galaxy is habitable. And here we see that in the reality I recall, it literally is 75,000 light years. And it makes no difference. Science is finding this out when it comes to splitting or, a proton, and finding out that they each respond to each other instantaneously, and they realize that it doesn't matter how far apart they are. And the Mandela Effect's proven them correct and vindicating them in that regard. So soon they'll realize that our whole body is made up of atoms and protons and things like that they're experimenting with. And it's like, well, if that happens to us, one of the atoms, then it's obviously going to happen throughout our whole body. In other words, all life, including the blade of grass, has a parallel existence. And the Mandela Effect's proven it, because here we are in another reality where we see the blade of grass that we recall in our reality we actually recall coming from. Nelson Mandela perished in prison at some realities, and in others he ascended to presidency of South Africa after being liberated from prison. So whether he was a president or martyr, the geopolitical situation of South Africa remains the same in every reality. There's many things about Nelson Mandela that makes it a great namesake. Not the least to be in that, obviously, he perished in some realities and still existed in others. So the same could be true with us. And then, of course, we see the things are, what we perceive as changes are all around us, but they're not changing. They're just different. Now, that's because we're in a completely different reality we've always existed in. So there's bound to be differences. Again, nothing is changing. They're just different. It's as simple as that. And there's so many things that help explain the fact that we have this parallel existence. Even residual evidence can be explained away very easily by this fact that we have a parallel existence. Quite simply put, the residual evidence is unwittingly left by us. Now, I love this about time. I've always been fascinated with time. So why is the time different in these realities? And it's simple, because the axis speed of Earth is the same in every reality. And we know this simply because this axis speed of the galaxy itself is exactly the same no matter where you are within the galaxy. The speed of the galaxy's rotation off of its galactic center is identical, and it defies Kepler's laws of dynamics. So naturally, The 24-hour clock is calibrated for one full revolution of the Earth. So the smaller the Earth, the faster the linear time will be. And there's always, regardless of what reality you're in, going to be a 24-hour clock. And it's based on, calibrated off of one full revolution. So if the Earths are all turning at the same speed off their axis, the larger the Earth, the longer it's going to take. The smaller the Earth, the quicker it's going to be. So that explains the 50% time difference in each reality. Everything comes together with this theory, and that's what makes a theory sound, is when everything comes together. And it's not, it's not me telling you this. It's not me telling you. It's the Mandela Effect showing you. Mandela Effect is showing you everything you need to know, or I know in my case, it's everything I've ever wondered about my whole life has been answered by what the Mandela Effect is revealing. It's as simple as that. And even the dinosaurs had a parallel existence. Their fossil records are in every reality, every single one. I always use Sue, the T-Rex at the Field Museum of Natural History in Chicago. That's a great example. Sue had a parallel existence. So did this dinosaur. So did every dinosaur. So did all life. So does all life. And I always love to look at Orion's belt, realizing that there are Earths orbiting the stars of Orion's belt, just as our sun is a star in Orion's belt from someone's perspective, somewhere within the galaxy. Someone's looking at our sun, and it's one of the constellation stars. I like to always imagine it's Orion and Orion's belt, but it could be any of them, because those stars are separated by light years, and even in the Orion's belt. So we would never know. And look at our bodies. I mean, there are many differences in our skeleton. Our bodies did not change overnight. Your independent soul portion is in another replica version of yourself that has always existed, that has been sharing your soul since the day you were born. And it's quite apparent that the skeletons, or our bodies in general, are built to suit the particular earth we're created on. These skeletons are way more robust than these bodies. And same with the fingernails. They didn't change overnight. This is how they have always been in this reality. And, it's amazing. Think about it. You're inside of another replica version of yourself that has always existed since the day you were born. Think about that. It's fascinating. And because of that quantum entanglement, it doesn't matter if the time is 50% faster in one reality than another. It still always balances out and springs back to the exact same. So when I wake up in another reality, the time's not different. I mean, I know my case isn't typical, and I'm just speaking for what I'm experiencing. Nothing is different from reality to reality, except for some of the geography and certain things on TV and shows and things like that, and music and all kinds of things that, subtle things, very subtle. But for the most part, that's what's so perplexing about the Mandela Effect. For the most part, everything is virtually identical. And I honestly think that the quantum shifting is cleansing our souls. Think about that. And the Hopi Indian even prophesized about the day when our souls will be cleansed. And what a perfect way for that to happen. And also protecting it. I mean, our souls are shifting into other realities along with all the other portions of your souls at the exact same time you shift throughout the galaxy. Think about that. That has to be incredible. Who knows, that I doubt if that's ever happened before in human history. Now it's possible, and I've thought about this, that we were been shifting our whole life, and everyone has been going through this, but they've been in such virtually identical realities that we didn't even notice. I mean, there were many times in my life in the past where I thought, wow, I don't feel like I belong here. I feel like I'm in another reality. And perhaps that's exactly what was happening. But when you wind up in a reality 75,000 light years from the solar system you recall as a location in the Milky Way galaxy, then that wakes you up, especially when the Earth is 4 times smaller. The continent missing on the North Pole called Arctica, that wakes you up. So, but I think it's meant to be revealing. And then people, occupations like editors, they'll have more variations in their realities because they have more decisions in their life and in their occupation. So that's why we see differences and variations in movies. It makes so much sense, doesn't it? And boy, I always think too, boy, Sigmund Freud would have had a better understanding of human psychology if he was shown what the Mandela Effect is revealing about human nature. So many things are explained by this parallel existence, and why we humans do the things we do. And the same UFOs are in every reality, which proves that all paranormal and dimensional events are parallel too. Now, the parallel existence is in one dimension. Uh, our existence is in one dimension, but that's not to say there are not other dimensions. Of course there are, but they are parallel too. Think about that. Because we experience them in every reality. Heaven, in other words, heaven is parallel too. And this is important. Our realities are separated by distance, not dimensions. It's as simple as that. Uh, you know, because again, science has proven that the instantaneous, uh, response we have to one another's realities is, virtually instantaneous, and it's been proven that can happen. And of course, because of these great distances involved, there's bound. I know I sound like I'm double talking. I'm saying instantaneous, and then saying there's going to be a delay. But of course, there's going to be a galactic delay. I'm talking about instantaneous as far as we can grasp. But there's going to be a galactic delay, and that's why we have deja vu. Because if you felt like you've been in that room before, but you haven't, well, in some realities you have been. Maybe a split second before, maybe 10 minutes before, who knows? Maybe 30 minutes before, who knows? But that explains premonitions and deja vu. And then here's another film analogy. In the film, each frame represents each reality. Some frames may have a different background, but the film remains the same. Our life remains the same. Again, in my case, and I know it's not typical, every decision I made in every reality. Every person I've ever known or loved, or my family, has been in every single reality. They're identical. And they too have made the same decisions. I know that's not the case with everyone. Again, talking about editors. And antiquities in every reality, which proves prehistory was parallel too. So think about it. It's always been like this. It's not just because the Mandela effect occurred that all of a sudden that caused life to be parallel and things to be different. I mean, it's always been like this. We're just being shown for the first time. Here's another one, demonstrating our realities are separated by distance, not dimension. We'll never be able to run into each other. Because if you went to, if you were able to go to another Earth and another portion of the galaxy, and were able to, technology caught up to where you could actually get there, well, think about it. While you're getting there, they're getting here. Another version of yourself is getting here, and you'll cross in the deep vastness of space, and sure, you'll wind up there, but another version of yourself will wind up here. So you'll never, get to be standing next to each other. I mean, but if you think about it, that's exactly what's happening with our souls. And that would also happen physically, if it were even ever possible, which I doubt, because we're talking trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of miles, even to the closest reality that no doubt exists out there. And this is my favorite. I mean, I've immediately, pretty much for the most part, immediately realized, and I certainly understand it now, is without a doubt the most miraculous thing to ever happen to humanity, especially since the parting. I think it's more miraculous than the parting of the Red Sea. Sometimes I'll say since the parting of the Red Sea, but it goes beyond that, because the Exodus happened in every reality. And of course, there's variations in the Bible, but we should expect that. And see, there are Earths of all sizes in the Milky Way galaxy. They all rotate off their axis at the same speed. That's why the Orion dwarf Earth's linear time is 50% faster than the Sagittarius super Earth's linear time. But yet the realities remain the same. I mean, it's fascinating to think about it. And we got to always keep in mind that it's us human beings that invented time, and it's the linear time is calibrated from the Earth's size and rotation, so it'll always be a 24-hour day, regardless of what size the Earth is. Some astrophysicists assume that the larger the globe body is, the more daylight they will have. Well, that might be the case, but again, time is invented. So we would calibrate whatever planet we discover or whatever, and put the prime, meridian line and the anti-prime meridian line in established coordinates, and along with time zones. It's all invented, so it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Time, space, and time is irrelevant, and this is a great example of how weather is parallel too, because the August 8th, 1988 was the first night game in Wrigley Field, and it was a drought year, and that of course it rained that night. And I remember in the reality I recall that they wound up playing later that night, but in some realities they played the next day, but the score was the same, everything was the same. But the real amazing thing is that a weather event happened in every reality, so the weather is parallel too. So think about that. And also, it's important to realize that everything obviously is made from the Earth, and it stays on the Earth. Nothing's coming with us on these, uh, you know, trips to other galaxies or other realities. Nothing comes with us, but we don't need to because it's already here. It's already at every reality. So everything remains in each reality. It's only our souls that are leaving one reality to another. And that I always remember the Liberty Dime having Dwight D. Eisenhower on it. But this is probably one area where you won't find residual evidence, and that's because the United States Mint is very careful about not letting anything out. But I'm sure every mint in every reality in the United States had both of these presidents as a candidate for the Liberty Dime, and they may even went as far as doing the artwork or making a die or whatnot. But they were very careful in destroying and leaving no, evidence, or what we would call residual evidence. You're not going to find that. But other residual evidence you will find, because that's unwittingly left. There is no care taken in disposing of an idea that was or was not used. Might have been used in one reality and not the other, like the Ford logo. Logos of all types. And I mentioned, I mentioned it again, both men were no doubt considered to be on the Liberty Dime in all the realities. And some they chose Dwight D. Eisenhower, and some they chose FDR. They're both perfect candidates, if you think about it, for the Liberty Dime. I just totally remember Dwight D. Eisenhower on the right there, just like that. It was the very front of his face. It wasn't a profile like FDR's is. So that's me in every reality in 2012. In some realities, I just couldn't get over that. I always called it, it just got, the dime was a real big. There's so many things that's impossible to change and hide, and like globes and things. And I also remember Boxcar on the second B-29 bomber that dropped the bomb on Japan. I remember it being spelled Boxcar, and there's some interesting aspects to this sortie and everything I'll get into later. And of course, we know the human skull didn't change overnight. It's always been like this in this reality. Notice the solid bone behind the eye sockets. I remember that being hollow. And in some realities, my truck is white, and I know this for a fact because I remember it being, when my friend bought it years and years ago, it was white. And it still is. It's white in that reality. It's just gray, like gray in this reality. That's amazing. And the real important thing with the Mandela effect is showing us that our soul is splintered and fractured into independent portions. Each independent portion is housed in a replica version of yourself in another independent reality, which closely resembles the reality you originated from. Or they all basically resemble each other. That's why I always like to say, even the Earth, regardless of being, vastly different in size, it's very, very unusually similar. Just like all these realities are. It's fascinating. And here again, I know this repeating myself, but our realities are separated by distance, not dimensions. And then here's another good illustration, like the rubber band on the plane. This rubber band powered model. The quantum entanglement will always unwind and maintain its original position, making the outcome of every event and every reality the same. It's just like the battles varied in World War II, and they're, but yet, but yet the outcome remained the same. This is something that was picked up from, a PBS. What is that? Coma Nitty source, PBS. In other words, this is an article. This is things that this physicists are finding out, that quantum entanglement enables particles to affect each other instantaneously across any distance. Entangled particles would remain connected even if they were on the opposite sides of the universe. Think about that. They totally actually acknowledge this, but in our case, we know it's across the galaxy, even across the galactic center. But we just keep it within a galaxy for now. It could be a universal thing, the whole universe. And that the basic fundamental existence found the basic fundamental foundation of existence is quantum entanglement. Think about it. That's what the last article is, but little do they realize that it's the basic fundamental foundation of existence is this quantum entanglement. It totally is. And then also, because we know there's Earths 4 times larger than this one, that the Mandela Effect has vindicated the early pioneers of the expanding Earth theory. Now, obviously, that makes more sense that the Earth gradually grows. I mean, it's infinitesimal in our lifetime, but soon geologists are going to find out that the Earth does indeed grow, because they can measure it now, that they have satellites surrounding it. But of course, it'll take many generations before they realize it. But the Earth does grow. That explains why we have plate tectonics and earthquakes and volcanoes, and it's constantly growing. So think about that. And we've been given evidence of it. Uh, you know, and see here, they're even showing at the far left, Pangea. It was just a tiny little globe with hardly any water on it. The oceans appeared and accumulated over great amounts of time, maybe hundreds of millions of years. It makes so much sense because H2O is quite abundant in the universe. And here's the Panama Canal is my favorite. It varies from Earth to Earth. Yet this license plate, which I got at a flea market, is exactly the same number. And the Panama Canal is doing its thing, getting some people from the Pacific to the Atlantic and vice versa in every reality, regardless of what direction it's going. Here, it's actually going the opposite direction. I remember going plumb line east and west. You just went west to get to the Pacific from the Atlantic. You didn't go through the Caribbean Sea or out Panama Bay or anything like that. It just was straight Atlantic to the Pacific, straight shot. Because the Isthmus of Panama was straight up and down, north and south. But here, the isthmus has a kink in it. So at some points, the canal goes, you actually have to head east to get to the Pacific Ocean from the Atlantic Ocean. It's really amazing. But yet it doesn't affect anything. The shipping still gets done. And here I mentioned earlier, the human bodies are built to suit the Earth they were created on. And of course, it's way more robust here. I remember the human skeleton being very frail in the reality I recall. And here again, it was meant, the Mandela Effect was meant to be a riddle. It's a faith based phenomenon. There is no proof. It's as simple as that. There's no way you could prove it. No way. And then I noticed a lot of movie backdrops in these realities have far less quality, but that's where the time is made up. Think about it. The time has to be made up somewhere. The human invented time. Even though the movie's the same length in every reality, they have 50% less linear time to work with in these realities. So the time must be made up somewhere. It's all in the details where the corners are cut to compensate. Think about that. I mean, it makes so much sense. I remember the chariot race in the circus here in Ben Hur. It was just amazing how the incredible detail of the circus, the arena. But here, if you if you freeze frame the movie or the race at certain points, you could see that there's still unfinished plaster work on the walls around this arena. Amazing. Same with Planet of the Apes. That one really got me. And here's my twin brother Dwayne and me and my father Clark DuFay in Naperville, Illinois, 1966. In every reality. See, I was born in this reality like I was in all the other ones, and I remember this. And here's my twin brother and myself in Colorado in every single reality. I remember this. I remember that red and white panel truck, Chevy panel truck. I believe that was 1956 or 58 or something. But that was in every single reality. And there's my siblings in every reality at the Brookfield Zoo, my brother and I. I mean, this is proof that we existed in every reality. And I do believe that the quantum shifting not only is, cleansing our soul, but it's protecting it for many reasons. And this is the thing that got me right away, is that it's quite obvious that religion has nothing to do with the Mandela Effect. We know more about spirituality than the Pope. Think about that. Just by experiencing the Mandela Effect. It's showing us more about spirituality than anybody could ever be taught. And what a great way to understand is by being shown, not being told or being taught, a bunch of dogma and stuff. We're being shown what these people will never be able to see. That's nothing against the parishioners. I'm just talking about the religious leaders and organizations. The parishioners are the ones that, invoke the Holy Spirit, you know, within the congregations or services or whatever. It's not the organization. And here's, another thing, the wolf and the lamb. I remember that too. I'm sorry, the lion and the lamb I remember, but here it's the wolf and the lamb. But the essence of the reverse remains the same in all realities. Now, to me, it's more applicable that it should be the wolf and the lamb because they're natural. You know, the wolf is a natural predator to the lamb, whereas the lion is more fictitious. It's more flamboyant, but it seems like things on those realities are. But again, they have more time. Here, they have to be frugal and more to the point and more realistic. And I noticed too that just a paradox that really gets me is antiquity looks older in these realities. And there's the paradox. Antiquities look newer on the older Earths and the older on the younger Earths. I mean, go figure. It's amazing. In some realities, the paleontologists paint the fossils white. Now, I remember all dinosaur fossils being bright white. And here, they're, patinaed as they should be. So, and here's T-Rex. The T-Rex Sue in every reality, which proves she had a parallel existence too. I touched on that earlier. And the Mandela Effect was perpetrated by the Supreme Creator to fulfill prophecy. I believe that's more likely than CERN or any human doing it, or the opposition spiritual forces. Believe me, they had nothing to do with it because they don't want us to know what it's revealing. Believe me, they would by no means do that. This is the one about the Planet of the Apes. I mean, look at behind it. It looks like paper mache, that wall. And I remember it being plaster of Paris, plaster, beautifully done. And the reality is that 50% more lineal time on the Sagittarius super Earth, this backdrop is plaster, not paper mache. I remember that, all of it. In fact, all the Ape City as a whole was just totally, in fact, it still exists. And on a, I think that on the outskirts of Hollywood, they built the city and did it all out of plaster, and it's still there. But here, it couldn't last long with all that paper mache. And see here too, the hourglasses are calibrated to suit the Earth's size and revolution in every reality. So the hourglasses are calibrated, they're all going to be an hour. It doesn't matter what size the Earth is. And this is something, I've always been around the Great Lakes, and they vary considerably from reality to reality. It's amazing. I have this sticker in a lot of places, and I always look at it often to see what differences I see. And usually, it gives you an indication that, oh, you shifted again. This is my favorite, jet lag. The departure time is the same in every reality, but the arrival time varies in certain realities due to the Earth's size differences. So, because of that, that's why we get jet lag. Think about it. Jet lag explained by the Mandela Effect. Thank you very much, Mandela Effect. Thanks for explaining something I've always wondered about, because there's no way that our brains and body and soul knows we're crossing over time zones, again, because it's invented. So why would we get jet lag? Just going into another time zone. I mean, think about it. I always was really perplexed by that because I experienced it myself. But it makes so much sense until all your versions of yourself have reached their destination and has settled in and things like that. And sometimes that could take days. You're going to be in that, have that sensation. Every one of the replica versions of yourself sharing your soul are going to have that sensation of jet lag until you're all in sync again. So think about that. That's amazing. That's why we don't get it when we drive. It has nothing to do with the speed or distance. It has everything to do with when you get, think about it. Some of your realities you've made to reach the destination maybe several hours before you do it, depending again on the distance of your travel. So it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? I mean, I'd always loved that about the Mandela Effect, explaining jet lag, deja vu, premonitions, all kinds of things. And here's, again, the battles will vary in each reality, but the outcome of the war remains the same in every reality. So, again, I like that because I studied, World War II extensively. And it's just amazing how many variations and differences there are from reality to reality. One of my favorite is the sinking of the Bismarck. Now, when the Bismarck first was launched and started, creating havoc in the North Atlantic, it sunk not only the hood but the HMS Prince of Wales. And here in this reality, the Prince of Wales was spared, but it's still 3 months later was sunk by the Japanese. So it didn't matter; their fate was already set, and the outcome of the war remains the same. And of course, the globes and maps are going to represent the Earth in each reality. So they're, that's not the globes. There's not somebody going around and changing every single globe that's ever been made on the entire Earth. That's impossible. So naturally, the globes and maps are going to represent the Earths that are in this particular reality. So again, they're not changing; they're just different. So that's fascinating. I carved this horse in 2011. It's identically the same in every reality. In fact, even the knot right there by its front leg, right there, just below the mane there, right behind the top part of the leg. That's in every reality. That's amazing. So the wood's even identical. This is my family in every reality. And the Mandela Effect's revealing things that have always been yet never known. That's exactly what it's doing, and I think that's exactly what it was supposed to do. Just supposed to do that. Reveal these things. Why else would it be happening? Again, it couldn't have been perpetrated by, opposition spiritual forces or human beings that are trying to keep us like sheep, or things like that, or human experiments, because people, the people in that position do not want us to know what the Mandela Effect's revealing. So they had nothing to do with it, believe me. So that's pretty much it. I got many more I'm going to work on. I know I've showed these before, and I apologize for that. But I just want to go over them again. It's nice talking points. I enjoy talking about it. It's therapeutic for me. And sometimes I've been leaving the comments on. I mean, I'm not saying I'm correct, so please spare the, I had somebody, like, again, to ask me for proof. I mean, there's no way you could prove it. Anybody who says they can are lying to you. They haven't got a clue, believe me, because you're not going to prove it, that it's happening. We only have our memories to trust, and that's it. And you can't prove your memories. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it again. I feel good about doing these and working on these, and I got to get back into it. I've been doing videos about a remodeling project I'm working on, a mobile home that Mary and I have been working on, Mary Hall and I, and I've been doing videos about that, and I've been trying to keep the Mandela effect out of that, and just trying to, because you still have to deal with every, life goes on regardless of what reality you're in. Because remember, we didn't have to travel here. We've already been here. Traveling is not necessary because we are already here. Even though we're doing this, our soul is shifting into these other realities. In a sense, our soul has always been here, and we have always been here. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I thank you for watching, and we'll talk at you later. Love you.